KKHT wants you to meet three of the classiest guys in real estate.
I am Chris Kelso, the maestro of mortgage.
I am Rob Cook, the godfather of real estate.
And I'm Joe Orsack, the king of credit swing. And together, we're
the Real Estate Rat Pack.
Much like us, real estate right now is smoking hot. So whether it's buying, selling, or owning, you need to check out the Real Estate Rat Pack.
They're here to take your calls and answer your questions live. Call now, 1-800-808-5548. And now, the Real Estate Rat Pack.
Welcome to the really big show.
Good morning.
That was my worst, Ed Sullivan impression
That
ever.
is pretty bad, actually.
Well, welcome to the Real Estate Rat Pack radio show, guys. It's another glorious day in the great state of Texas. Thanks for everybody that's tuning in on Facebook and all around the place. We'd like to have you on the show. We're going to have a fantastic show today. We've got some great guests lined up and a really, really awesome subject. It's going to be a tough subject, and it's going to be a sensitive subject. Rob may cry.
You never know.
He's a sensitive guy.
I'm a sensitive guy.
He's a sensitive guy, gals, yeah. He likes long walks on the beach and Cabernet.
And Harley Davidson. And I'm in. Listen, before we get started the show, I want to do a shout out to the NRG, the Next Gen Realtor Group. This is a group part of the Houston Association of Realtor who is out there with Roz Cruz, Randall Martin, Terry Lyons, Viso Kessoff, and Katie Maxwell, and about 100 other people are out there helping somebody renovate their house. And we do this once a year. This is me, a very ambitious today. We're going to do two on one day. And we go out there and we'll paint the house, landscape it, replace wood, we've replaced windows. It's a great cause, and it's pretty amazing to watch because we're usually starting around 7 o'clock, which, of course, I'm not there for 7 o'clock, but I told them I'd join them right after the show, and go to about 2, and it's complete. So it's pretty amazing, and it'll be at 1407 West Donovan, which is kind of the northwest area of Houston. So if you're in that area, stop by and say hi, and you heard it on the radio show. That's the Rat Pack radio show.
The Rat Pack radio show, that's right. Well, we were light one person in the studio today, and we have to make sure we give Chris Kelso a hard time because Chris is on the phone. He's calling in today. Chris, are you there?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing great.
Running a little late this morning. I will be in the studio in about 15 minutes, but you know me. I never miss a show, so if I can't be there in person, at least I'll call in for the first few moments.
We're trying to establish what kind of punishment for being late here is, and we'll come up with something in a little bit. So,
Rob already snaked your headphones, but that was going to be the punishment, but they already brought you another set, so.
Ah, sweet deal. I definitely appreciate it. We have an exciting show going on today also. It's one of the things you talked about. It's going to be a little difficult subject, but, one of the things that always comes about in all of our jobs, both with Rob, with you, Joe, and with me, is the subject of divorce. One of the things that has happened is it is prevalent in our society right now. Things don't work out sometimes, and people have to make a little separation. And I think this is a great show to really talk about what are the do's and don'ts, especially from a financial perspective and a real estate perspective, as to what are some of those best practices out there that we can talk about and that we can advise our listeners to consider if they're going through this process.
Well, it's amazing that we just happen to have somebody in the studio that could probably answer a lot of those questions and give us a lot of information. Joe, would you please go ahead and introduce our guest?
Absolutely. This is a good friend of mine, somebody I've worked with now for a couple years. Our businesses are referral partners for each other, and a really sharp individual that I'm glad that was available to get on the show, Miss Kitty Crutcher from Garg Associations. Kitty, say hello to everybody.
Good morning, everybody. I feel really privileged to be in the room with such handsome gentlemen today. And Chris, I drove
Here's
in
that
from
20 I owe you.
Chris, I drove in from a long way, and I made it on time.
Oh, there it is.
Yes, we're going to have to rib.
I agree.
We have to rib Chris. Well, we do have a lot of interesting stuff to talk about today on this show, and as Chris and everybody has already touched base on, folks, if you're going through this, if you're in the middle of it, definitely give us a call today. We're going to try to provide some great information on this subject. There's a lot of information that can be shared today that, as we've already alluded to, already touched on, it's not going to be the most easy subject to deal with, but there's definitely some things that you can do to smooth the process. So often in my business, this is one of the most common, really sad situations that I see when we have someone come in to work on their credit. They're out trying to reestablish, they want to get into a new home, et cetera. They get sent over, and it's somebody who's went through a divorce, and I cannot tell you how many times I've heard this scenario. Well, the spouse got the property in the divorce, and they haven't been paying it on time, and insert whatever, random amount of time. At this point, they're going into foreclosure or they're just paying it late every month, and my credit score is really damaged now, and I need to get my name off of that note. So what do I do? Let me tell you guys, that is the wrong time to be asking that question. That is one of my most heartbreaking questions because at that point, there's very little I can do for them. The damage is being done. The lender, who, when they had the happy couple at that time sitting at the table ready to sign on that 30-year note or 15-year note or whatever it might be, at that point, they had two viable options for making sure that the loan was being repaid. And to them, it does not matter what judge struck the gavel and said they get this part of the debt in the process. That lender still has two people on the hook. Why would they let one of them go? And once they're at that point with me, it's out of my control. There's not much I can do to improve their credit. Well, as long as they're going to be on that note and as long as the spouse is continuing to pay the debt late or not as the lender originally agreed. So that's just one scenario. Boy, we've got a lot to talk about on this subject. So be sure to give us a call. I'm going to give you guys the number. It's 800-808-5548. That's 800-808-5548. If you're tuning in, listening on the web, and if you're on Facebook, feel free to pop on the Real Estate Rat Pack Facebook page and post your questions there. We're going to be watching the page and trying to stay up with that. So give us a shout.
So I think at this point in time, Katie, where do you start with somebody when you start counseling them?
Well, when it comes to property, we start at the initial consultation. When they come in, we ask them what type of property they have. If there's a marital residence, do they want the house? Can they afford the house? And we don't, at least I don't as an attorney, allow them to include child support as a basis for payment because there's no guarantee you're going to get that child support. We look at it, do an analysis, determine if they can afford it. If they can't, then immediately we call opposing counsel and say, okay, does your client want the house? If they do, can they refinance it? If they don't want the house, then let's get it on the market. I don't ever let it go to the end because some divorces I can get out of in 60 days, which is the state requirement. Others take up to a year. I don't want to be in the 12th hour trying to figure out how to sell a house or how to refinance a house that late. It needs to be done in the initial consultation. It needs to be started right then because you are correct. I mean, we have to advise our clients that just because they're getting a divorce, it doesn't end their obligation on a debt. It doesn't matter what the judge says. Creditors don't have to abide by that. So that needs to be the initial stage. Get it on the market. If you don't want it, get it refinanced because it's a process that can take up to 90 days, sometimes even longer. And while we have the option of temporary orders to force a payment and can keep the payments going during that short period of time, once I get to the end, I don't have that option.
Yeah, well, you are equally and severally liable on a note. And so, as Joe was saying earlier, they are not going to remove you from that note. What's the motivation of a lender to do that? Well, let's give a scenario which I'm sure you've seen. Neither one of them can qualify for the house on their own. Then what?
Well, then we put it on the market. I mean, that's the only other option. If you can't afford the house without two incomes, then the next step is to get it sold. Because if not, you're going to take a huge hit on your credit, and it's not going to be pretty in the end. So it's might as well get the house on the market. And there's sentimental ties to a home. That's where we started raising our kids. That's where this happened. And you have to explain to your client, you have to be a little tough that says if you can't afford it, you need to sell it.
And so I'm sure this all goes smoothly and tempers are low and nobody's getting upset. And,
Yes.
and I've been doing real estate for a number of years. And of course, I've counseled people who are going through divorce. And usually I've had a very good time with that because I actually said, you know what, I don't work for one or the other. I work for both in disposing of this home. And I just want you to understand that. Don't call me and say that, you know, this person's doing this or that person's doing this. But when you get people who are in conflict and the house needs to be sold, I mean, what happens?
We go into court and we ask the court to appoint a real estate agent that can sell the house, and we will like to say we need them.
I know a good agent, by the way.
Well, that's good. We like to
Shameless
see
plug.
We like to see them agree on the sales price, but we ultimately give the authority to the real estate agent. And if the real estate agent is familiar with the market, they know the comps in the area. And that's, again, one of the first things I do is I seek an appraisal on the house. I get with a real estate agent. I get the comps in the area so that I know how much they owe on the house at that point. Realistically is it going to sell for? Are we going to be in a negative situation? And then we could go forward and how to process that.
And then you get into situations where the wife says, you know what, My kids are in the school district where I wanted. That's why we chose this house. I want to stay here. I can't qualify my own, but I can if I get child support. I mean, that happens every day. So what do you do?
It happens. I mean, we can give you an order showing you have child support. If you can requalify and you can get it refinanced, then I'm taking it out of one party's name, and we can use the child support as the basis of income. I just don't like people to rely on it. You know, probably 50% of my business is collecting child support that's not been paid.
Wow.
Yeah, you were telling me that often the people who are worth millions of dollars are the worst offenders of not paying child support, and that just shocked me.
They are. They have this, not all, I should say, not all, but some have the mentality that they earn their money and they don't want to give it to their ex-spouse, and they neglect the fact that it's for their children.
Wow. That never ceases to amaze me, which I don't even know.
How do you get your arms around that?
Yeah, how do you get your arms around that? One of my business partners went through a divorce, and something I've always admired about him, not only did he voluntarily paid significantly more than he had to, and he flies to Chicago. Now he's up there, opening an office up there so that he could be closer to his child, but he flew up there every weekend to be with his daughter. And that was, to me, so significant in why I'm in business with him, because it's his integrity in dealing with that. So, hey, pay your doggone child support. I literally won't take somebody as a client if they have past due child support. So that's an internal thing. I don't want to try to fight that on someone's credit, in other words. It's like, get that straight, come back and we'll talk.
And they have a lot more far-reaching powers. The state has provided some far-reaching powers to enforce child support. So tell me what those are.
Well, we have the Uniform Jurisdictional Act that allows us to take a Texas order and enforce it anywhere in the United States. We have garnishment available in the state of Texas for your child support. So the state's given us the tools we need. It's just a matter of getting them, getting the clients and getting it for them.
In resolving real estate issues, which is our main topic here, tell me what other kind of pitfalls that you see or infighting that you see in working the divorce.
Stubbornness is one of the biggest things. Is neither one wants to give. They both want the house, and we're in a situation where we're constantly fighting in court and who should have it and who shouldn't have it. And that's when you get in this situation to where you're at the end and I have a house and what do we do with it? And that's the biggest pitfall we have, is the stubbornness of the parties.
And if they continue to be stubborn, what's usually the outcome of?
Usually they both lose. Usually they both lose. Both clients will lose. Divorce is a give and take process. I always tell everybody, you're not going to be completely happy with the agreement you get, because you're going to lose some. They're going to win some. They're going to lose some. You're going to win some. And that's how you know you got a good agreement.
Well, we're coming up against a break. We're going to get more into this. As Rob, you said, it's a business situation that you're dealing with. At the point that it gets to the divorce, it is a business that you're dissolving. And as tough as it is to approach it from an unemotional standpoint, it's really in your best interest to deal with it as a business situation that you're going through. So when we come back, we've got a lot to talk about on dealing with the business of it. Give us a shout, 800-808-5548, 800-808-5548, or tune in on Facebook.
By George, you got it.
Facebook.com/Real Estate Rat Pack.
You know what? You're lovely. You know what? You're...
And welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Show. I am Chris Kelso. I am in the house now.
Yes.
Testing everybody out there.
When you're big rolling like Chris is, you can just stroll in whenever.
That's what we try to do every once in a while. Keep everybody on their toes.
When your name's on the top of the marquee, you can just stroll in, demand the M&Ms, only the yellow ones.
Only the yellow ones. That is correct. I would truly agree. One of the things we have right here, we actually have a caller right now. We have Cindy, who is calling in, want to ask us a question. Cindy, how you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Well, we appreciate you calling the show. What can we do for you?
I'd like to know if I can break it down just two things. If I'm involved in a divorce, haven't even filed yet, but I anticipate doing so. Just say we paid $150 for the house. The house is paid for. He paid $100 of that. I paid $50 out of separate property, his and mine, separate property. What do I hope to get out of that? Do I get anything based on community at all, or strictly what I put into it, my percentage? And then the other question is, I need a place to live. I left an abusive relationship I have now got to find a place to live. It kills me paying money for an apartment. Is there any hope for me buying anything right now? I have the means to do some of that, but I probably can't because then he'll come back and claim that that's his too, right?
Well, we've got two parts to the question here. One is going to be we'll let Kitty handle on the legal side, and then Rob on the real estate side on the expertise there. So we'll give you some good information here right quick. Kitty, go ahead.
Well, with regard to the separate property issue, you're definitely going to have a claim for reimbursement. And if the house is increased based on improvements that the community has made, then you're definitely going to have a right to ask for reimbursement for that as well. Basically, for the community to be put back in whole, and you'll have a right to go after that money as well.
Okay, and then he's definitely wanting to keep it. I know he will. I could care less. I just want a fair share from it. So he would, in essence, probably have to go take a loan if that's what he wants to do, or be forced to sell it to give me my portion, correct?
Right. There's several ways that you can actually handle that. The first would be, yes, he could get a loan, buy your portion of the equity out. The second would be if there's 401ks or money in savings that he can actually pull that money out. It just depends on, it would be a division based on the marital community assets of the any 401k, and then on top of that, your reimbursement claim.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that part.
And Rob on
okay, well,
second
let's
part.
address this. One of the first things I always have people do is, of course, visit with somebody like Chris Kelso, who is our maestro of mortgages, and have you go there to qualify. Is there anything that you think that has occurred during this time that may have hurt your credit or your ability to purchase a home?
Yeah, there are a couple of things, but like I said, I have some money of my own, separate property, whatever, but I'm afraid that if I use that to buy a place, that then becomes what? Because I'm still married.
Well, I would not purchase anything until the divorce was final.
Well,
that's always my suggestion.
Right. And that's what I was going to say is two things. Number one is if you are married and you're buying a primary residency in the state of Texas, if you're legally married, the spouse has to sign on title. However, if you buy an investment property, a spouse is not required legally by the state of Texas to be on title. So there's a difference financing-wise, whereas a primary residency, you can buy a home with less money down. An investment property requires usually a minimum of 20 or 25%. So it depends on what financial situation you're in which you could make that happen. However, what Rod said, and I agree with him, is most of the time it's best to wait until all obligations are settled from the divorce or the pending estate right there before you proceed forward.
And Sandy, there's something that we just had an agent that concluded a transaction with someone who went through a divorce. It was the husband, and he actually leased the house he ultimately purchased for about 3 or 4 months because he had an impending divorce. It was just waiting to come to a conclusion, and then he went ahead and purchased that home. So, I mean, there's always...
So like he had some agreement with the folks who are selling it, and he said, hey, I plan on buying this. Let me lease it.
Exactly. In fact, he actually went out and looked at houses for sale and then approached them with that option. Now, as realtors, we don't do lease purchase type of contracts because they can be very convoluted, but I always suggest getting with an attorney to have them work those kind of details out. If you want to do a lease or a purchase contract, we do those as a separate unit, but you can tie them together, but licensees in the state of Texas are not permitted to do such. But it is something that can be done.
And Cindy, I want to add something real quick, too. Sit down and talk to one of our credit consultants. It's a complimentary process, doesn't cost anything, and just make sure that you're best positioned from a credit standpoint before you move through this process. Ahead of time is going to be so much easier to deal with than when you're in the throes of the situation. 281-914-4116. Improve My Credit USA. I already have consultants at the office. They'll sit down and look over your credit situation and make sure you have the best advice, best direction handling that side of it so that when you get over to Chris and you're looking at getting pre-qualified, you're prepared.
We also, on the legal side of it, we have the ability that once you have filed, we can work with you, work with opposing counsel once he's served and gets to counsel, and we can work on getting an agreement that anything you purchase would be considered your separate property. You're welcome to call me at my office, at Garg Associates. It's 281-362-2865. Tell them you talked to me on the radio station. They'll transfer you through to my phone, and I'll give you a courtesy telephone conference, and we can discuss your case in more detail.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is very good and helpful for me. I appreciate it.
You
Cindy,
bet,
thank you very much for calling in today.
Appreciate it.
We also.
Bye-bye. Huh?
Oh, thank you. That was it, Cindy. I'm sorry. We also have another question posted up on the Real Estate Rat Pack website. Richard is asking if we could ask our guest, Kitty, to discuss the issue of separate property, community property, and or the homestead laws.
Well, with regards to separate property is anything you've owned prior to the marriage or you inherited in the marriage. Can also, if we have the correct documents to trace property that's purchased with separate property money, we can trace that and make an argument that that is separate. What becomes community once you get married is your income. I'm so sorry. Your income, any purchases you make during that period of time is community. With regards to the homestead laws, I allow my real estate lawyer that we have on our firm, they deal with that. They advise their clients with regards to the homestead issues.
I have a question on that. Is that basically if you bought a house, say you bought it for $100,000 and it's separate property, but now it's appreciated to $150,000, that amount that it's appreciated, is that still separate property? I've heard mixed.
It's a yes and no. It depends on the increase in the value. Now, if it's an increase based on the market of the area, then the argument is that that is still separate property. If it's based on the fact that the community has made extensive improvements or added on to the home, then the argument becomes the community needs to be reimbursed for enhancing your separate property.
Great answer.
Well, I want to get into a couple things. First of all, I want to make sure that you guys have our number as well, because this is a subject that I know a lot of people are dealing with and have questions about. 800-808-5548. It only took me like 3 times to be able to say that smooth. 800-808-5548. Give us a call with your questions. You can also go to our website or our Facebook webpage, facebook.com/real estate rat pack, and post your question there, and we'll address it. I want to talk about also dealing with some of the credit side. This is how you and I started working together, Kitty, was on the credit side. There's definitely some best practice stuff that most people are unaware of in prepping themselves. When you know you're going to go through this situation, it is so important to sit down, get some good strategy together on protecting your credit. Divorce by itself does not have to necessitate destroying your credit. There's definitely some things that you can do to position yourself, insulate yourself as much as possible while moving through that process. And I want to keep it connected to real estate because some of the stuff we talked about is dealing with the home sale. That is that's probably the most damaging thing to deal with because it's the biggest purchase. Once you get to the point where one of the persons in the relationship is not paying the note on time, the husband got the house in the divorce, and now out of spite, he knows that the spouse, we've seen it, right? It's amazing that it happens, but out of spite, they pay it late because they have a house. They're not worried about it, right? And so they do this intentionally, damaging the other person's credit, knowing it's going to hurt them. That's so amazing to me. So it is so critical to deal with that before getting into that situation because once you're there, now the ability to get your name off of that note is going to be completely dependent on the other person.
You know, and that's valid for anything, by the way, whether it be credit cards, whether it be your home note, whether it be an auto loan. I mean, anything that is associated with the community, as you talked about, you know, Katie, right there, it's important to look at it, everything, because it's going to have such a big impact.
Absolutely. It's just a lot easier to deal with $5,000 worth of credit debt versus $250,000 worth of home debt.
No, and you're absolutely right there. You know, one of the things that we see all the time, an individual comes in, they're trying to get a loan. They are 5 years or 3 years away from a divorce. The spouse had the property in the divorce. They come and all of a sudden they look at their information and say, have you had a foreclosure recently? And they say, well, no, you know, that home isn't even mine anymore. And I have to bear the bad news is, well, guess what? You're going to have to wait X amount of time because this foreclosure recently posted, et cetera. And they come and say, well, here's my divorce. He or she got it in the divorce. As I tell them is, unfortunately, it's still in your credit. It's still valid for you. When you signed on the dotted line prior to, unfortunately, separating from your spouse, you had an obligation to the bank.
And Chris, what's the typical length of time before they can purchase a home after a foreclosure?
3 years.
3 years.
And a very good question, by the way. A foreclosure is not from whenever they moved out. A foreclosure is when it was actually sold from a bank perspective. So you might have a foreclosure that was unpaid, goes months without being paid, and then gets assigned for a foreclosure, and then it might be another 6 or 8 months before the trustee actually sells that property, depending on Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae or FHA or whoever it's for.
It can drag out a long time.
3 years, that is correct. Well, we're coming up against a break again. Boy, time flies by when you're having fun or when you're in the car running late, right?
We're going to dock your pay 15 minutes.
800-808-5548. Give us a shout. We'll be right back.
I live in a tiny closet, a lukewarm cold water flat with room.
Welcome back to the show, guys. Man, we have got such great content to deliver today, and we've got such great guests in the studio today, and we're dealing with a really difficult subject that we're trying to make a little smoother by providing some good information today, folks. We're dealing with the subject of divorce and how that impacts going through the whole process on real estate side, how it impacts your credit, et cetera. So on that note, something I wanted to bring out, we've got Kitty Crutcher today in from Garg Associates, and we were talking about this on the break. I said, when you're going through something that is as emotionally difficult to deal with as divorce, it clouds making sound business decisions sometimes. And you get into the give and take of the emotions of the relationship, and you're dealing with something as equally challenging, which is the dissolving of a business relationship, which is marriage. And so the last thing you really need to bring to that process is the high emotion of the other side, right? And so you have to be able to place a lot of trust in the attorneys that you work with, because they're the ones that really take the unemotional standpoint and try to just help you make the best business decision in protecting your side of the agreement. And so on that note, Kitty, is there really something that you can tell us? Whether, we think that they should all use Garg Associates.
Of course.
But you're a hot commodity. You get booked up, so if they can't get the Kitty Crutcher, what should they look for in a good divorce attorney?
Well, they need to do their research. Online is a great tool now. Most law firms have websites. Go in, look at the websites. Like if you go to garganassociates.com, we have all of our attorney profiles on there. We have testimonies from our clients as well to see how we interact with our clients. We also have content on there that explains the divorce process, but you need to know the attorney. You need to talk to the attorney on the phone. Ask to talk to the attorney. There's no reason why prior to a consultation you shouldn't be able to talk to the attorney. Interview several attorneys. You have to feel comfortable because you're asking, when you walk into my office, my goal is to take as much stress off of my client as I possibly can by taking on the brunt of everything that is going on and handling the dissolution of the marriage and taking that stress away from you. And that's some of the biggest things that I've had with clients that have come in with me. They say, I like you, you're aggressive, I can trust you. And you have to be able to trust the attorney. And you're welcome, like I said, just call or talk to the attorney. You can call my law firm at 281-362-2865. My assistant is Jessica. Just tell her you heard me on the radio and you'd like a chance to talk with me personally, and she'll get you straight through to me.
Awesome. Okay, well, I don't want to hog up much time on this because we've got some great guests in the studio that I want to give as much time as possible to. But from a credit expertise standpoint, I wanted to kind of give you, the listeners, some best practices, okay? First of all, as we've already talked about, the lender, when they have both of your names on the dotted line, the obligation to that debt is both of yours. And just because you guys weren't able to stay together as a joint guarantor of that debt, they could care less. The judge bangs the gavel, says husband gets debt, wife gets debt. Well, that's great for the relationship side of it, but that doesn't make a hill of beans to the lender, right? I have two of you on the hook. Why do I want to let one of you go, right? So that's why the real estate side is important, that we've already talked about, to deal with that in advance. But now let's just really quickly go through some best practices on the credit side. First of all, from an individual standpoint, you want to make certain that you have at least 2 revolving credit cards in your name, singularly in your name. So if you each had, to make this easy on the math side, let's say you had 4 credit cards that you were dealing with, debt spread across all 4. Take the debt, move them all to one card, and then as a couple deal with that debt between the 2 of you. On the remaining cards, then once you have the debt off of those cards, call the lender, decide which one of you is going to be on what card, and remove the other person from that card. Do not close that card. Keep that card in your name so that you don't lose the payment history and the positive credit side of that. Do that before you go through the divorce. Get that worked out ahead of time. It's not going to be a fun process, and you don't always have the luxury of doing that. I do understand that. But when it's possible, make that decision. If you're going to go through it beforehand and you see that, hey, there's only 2 credit cards and we have lots of debt to deal with, open up an account in your name, a small card, make sure you're on that and start building that positive payment history in advance. When you get over to Chris, he's going to need a seasoned account. He wants trade lines that are at least 12 months old that have positive payment history. So if you're in a desperate situation where you just went through a tough divorce and now in the midst of it, you're going out and saying, I need to find a place, and you don't have those trade lines, man, you don't have the time. The time is just not going to be on your side to build that positive credit history. So make sure that you maintain at least 2 credit cards with a positive payment history in your name separately in the process. Move that debt to one card and deal with that debt as a couple there, and let the attorneys handle that side of it. But as much as possible to protect your credit, keep 2 in your name. I could go on for a lot more, so I won't hog up any more time.
You just share some enthusiasm about your subject, Joe.
Yes.
Kitty, I have a question. What other types of protections can you do when you're going into this dissolution of the marriage?
Real quick, I want a shameless plug again. I have credit consultants that are hanging out, ready to discuss that subject at a much greater length. 281-914-4116. Improve My Credit USA.
That is a shameless plug.
Yes, it is.
Shameless
That would be,
plug.
part of being a host.
And be sure to call Rob Cook at Prudential Anderson Properties, 281-543-0527, immediately after that.
Yes. Okay, so Kitty, I'm sorry.
To protect yourself, when I do the initial consultation with the client, we do advise them to make sure they have some credit cards in their own name. I advise them to open a bank account in their own name. It's still community property, even if you move money from the community account to that account, but you don't want to take the chance that somebody walks in and wipes out the entire bank account and you have nothing to survive on. I tell them to start the process. If they want to keep the house, look at refinancing, what they're going to need, gather their documents up, make sure that they have sufficient assets, make sure they have their 401k paperwork, whatever they need to work with a mortgage lender, and we start that process. I know Chris touched on this earlier about, getting to the end and there's issues when they come about the foreclosures. I make sure in every divorce decree I do that if the other party's getting the house, the first thing I do is put a provision in the decree that requires a refinance within 90 days. And then at the end of that 90 days, I have the option to come back into court and ask the court to force the sale of the home if it's not refinanced, or he has to show that he has started the process. The other thing we can do is what we call a deed of trust to secure assumption. That allows the party that's not awarded the house, they're still on the mortgage, they can call. And I tell my clients, you call every month to make sure that payment's been made. The first time the payment's missed, they have the option to go in, make that payment, notify the party that has the house, says, I've made this payment on your behalf, you need to reimburse me. And when they don't, we have the right to have a trustee execute that deed of trust and sell that house as if it was in foreclosure prior to you ever getting to foreclosure on the mortgage side.
Very
wow,
smart.
that's strong. I like that
That's
a lot.
strong. It's real strong right there, because most of the time, if you don't have that in place, what we talked about a bit earlier ends up coming in, and then you have no control or no visibility into what that looked like throughout that foreclosure, the fact they were late on their payment to begin with.
Well, Chris, we have, like I said, I didn't want to hog up too much time there. We have an important guest in the studio.
We have a very important guest. And so, part of going through what we talked about planning when you're going through a divorce, and when you're going through, if you're going to keep the property, if you're going to keep the home, is one of our great sponsors, and they're actually in studio right now, so great subject matter. You're going to hear from them a lot, not only this show, but in future shows from us, is planning for the inevitable, which is maybe a breakdown or something going on with your home. So we actually thought it was a great idea to bring OneGuard home warranties on air right now and sort of talk a little bit about how this can assist an individual. More importantly, who you are, what you do, number one. And then number two, we're going to talk a little bit about what you offer service-wise in the home. And we're going to talk about how this relates to really allowing individuals to have a little safety net in place. Bill, let me have you introduce yourself first.
Yes, good morning. My name's Bill Knapic, and I'm with OneGuard Home Warranties, and glad to see you. The divorce topic is a little scary. That's why I'm single. Been there, and it's daunting, no doubt. But I'm with OneGuard Home Warranties here with Natasha. There's 3 of us that cover the Houston area, and that's myself, Natasha, and Sandra Stevenson. We are here. We've got a home warranty that we believe is a great package for homeowners, for people going through a real estate transaction. And a lot of people sometimes think, well, something has to break for that home warranty to be of value. Not so. It's there for that protection as you're talking about safeguards certainly with marriage and divorce, but I guess marriage doesn't come with a warranty.
Right.
But in any case,
But your home can.
but your home can, and we're here for you.
Well, the last thing that you need to deal with, Murphy's Law, right? Can you imagine adding to going through the emotional situation that a divorce is, trying to dissolve a business that is that situation, and then, as Murphy's Law would have it, have some major home issue to deal with on top of that? That would be an absolute nightmare. I was thinking about that earlier, and just, I knew we had this subject coming in today, and I always want to make sure that our guests and our sponsors are really connected to the subject. And I was like, man, how do home warranty and divorce, how are these going to go together? And then I kind of pictured that scenario. Can you imagine dealing with a major home expense in the midst of trying to deal with the emotional situation of a divorce? That would be craziness.
No, and I would agree. One of the things, Bill, let us know some of the features that OneGuard offers so that individuals, and again, we've got about a minute to go before break, but if you don't mind, highlight some of those features that you have.
Some of the considerations and features with a home warranty and with OneGuard are, number one, the offering. I believe that every home warranty, it's like a menu. It's like a restaurant. Each one is different. We have features, I believe extra coverage, and then convenience features, such as I was starting to say, if something doesn't break, you can have your lawn fertilized and utilize that home warranty. If you look at it like pillars, you've got the offering of the home warranty, and in our case, we've got a brochure that has a lot of great things. Number two, it's the people that stand behind that warranty, the people that cover the area, like myself, Natasha, and Sandra, the people on the phones. And then number three, it's the contractors that are selected. We choose contractors that you're not afraid to let into the door. So we check them out. We interview each contractor, which makes sense, but not all companies do that.
Yeah, and you're right. One of the things, OneGuard obviously being one of the premiers, and we're coming against a break right here, but we're going to go back in when we come back after break and talk a little bit more about some of those convenient features, a little bit about what the importance of home warranty can be, and more importantly, if you're going through a divorce, how this can truly, as Joe was mentioning a while ago, alleviate some of the concerns on, now that I don't have a spouse to help me, how are those expenses going to be covered? A home warranty can be a huge difference in that area. And I'm going to make Natasha speak over here because she's all quiet in the studio and she's right next to me. Anyways, we're coming against the break. Remember, you can always reach out to us at 800-808-5548. We'll be right back.
Planet might be born, maybe even a galaxy. Oh, the shark, babe, has such
And welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Show. I want to apologize to everybody for being late this morning. They'll all razz me. But, I've gotten some text out there, and mostly from Moises from eCardio out there. He actually was playing poker with me last night, and he thinks I was late because I won all of his money. And that's not necessarily the case right there. I was late because I was singing too much NSYNC and Bye 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 and all the good songs out there. So, Moses, this is for you, buddy.
Well, Chris, we didn't want to tell you, but this is an intervention.
This is an intervention out here, right? Well, to get back, one of the things we were talking about right now, we were actually speaking with OneGuard. And number one, for all those listening, I think Bill has something very exciting that I want everybody to hear. And then we want to talk a little bit about what you were talking about with Natasha afterwards. But Bill, we're getting back into OneGuard. You have actually a very exciting opportunity for all those listeners out there right now.
Actually, yes. For today, tomorrow, and even Monday, if you mention the Real Estate Rat Pack, you heard Bill and Natasha on the Real Estate Rat Pack, and call 888-896-0014. That's 888-896-0014. We have Bree and Katie leading our phones today to take that call. So if you want to tell your realtor, hey, I want that OneGuard home warranty, they can call in and get a $25 discount right on those warranties, whichever plan they select. So anyway, I think that's a good thing for the next couple days, and then we'd be glad to help you.
Just want to throw out, guys, we mentioned a lot of telephone numbers on the show, so it's sometimes difficult to keep up with us. If you ever want to find one of our awesome sponsors, all you have to remember is realestateratpack.com. They're all listed there, so all you have to do is hop on realestateratpack.com, click on the OneGuard logo, and it'll shoot you right over to our awesome sponsors, and they can take care of you.
As they say, operators on duty.
Operators on duty. And and remember, you don't just have to be buying or selling a home. If you have a home right now, and you might be going through divorce,
right.
You own it, you're not going through divorce, you can call right now OneGuard and get that discount and get a home warranty put in place.
That's exactly right. Any homeowner out there, you are right, Chris.
So Natasha, it's time for you to speak a little bit. You've been all quiet in here.
Yes, it is. You guys are hogging up all the space. But I'm Natasha Livingston. I'm one of the other account executives that works the Houston area here. And we, as at OneGuard, In this particular process of divorce, I've been around real estate for many years, and it's not a fun process, but we, in this case, are a neutral party. Now's the time. If you, in fact, have a warranty in place, it stays with the home. So whoever the home goes to, that's who the warranty will be with. You may not know whether a warranty exists. Now's the time to pull that paperwork out, take a look, see if you have a warranty in place. You may want to extend the warranty. You may want to see if you want to add some of our great features that we have, because there's certain things you may not be able to care for at this time. Also, guys, you can add a warranty now. You don't have to purchase a home or be in the buying process. You may need that warranty right now because, to be quite frank, there are some things that we cover with our convenience features. As Bill mentioned earlier, we do AC tune-ups pre-season. We do heating tune-ups pre-season. We do lawn fertilization. I mean, hey, us ladies, these are some things we may not have done prior to. So now these are things that you're going to have to take a close look at, and we want to make sure that the listeners know that they can get this warranty at any time.
One of the things you were talking about is you can get it right now, and while you're going through that process or prior going to the process, and it will stay with the home.
Absolutely.
So if you're going through it, have the spouse pay for it right now while you're still together.
Yeah. Natasha, I want to ask more about the scope of coverage, because there are some misunderstandings about warranties. You know, it's not a structural warranties. It's usually mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So let's talk about the scopes and why OneGuard is a better program than a lot, because I know there's some limitation on other programs. So, and especially the big expense is going to be heating and air conditioning.
Absolutely.
So address that for us.
Absolutely. The scope of the coverage is to cover mechanical breakdowns. We don't do structural, as Rob mentioned, but the mechanical breakdowns, if your AC system goes out, we're there. All you have to do is pick up the phone, you call, and we'll get someone out to take a look at that. And there's a service fee. For those of you who aren't familiar with home warranties, this may be something you're interested in, mainly because you just have gone through a divorce and now you have this new responsibility. You just give us a call. There's a service fee of $59. We'll come out and take a look at that. We also cover the heating systems, plumbing systems, electrical systems, dishwasher, built-in microwaves, garbage disposals. I mean, and the list goes on, and you can absolutely go on our website, take a look at some of the other features that we offer with that.
I have a saltwater pool, so can I cover that?
Absolutely, you can cover that. That's called additional coverage. We have a basic plan, and we have a comprehensive plan. In our comprehensive plan, you can get all the coverages inclusive of washer, dryer, garage door opener, kitchen refrigerator, and ice maker. Now, mind you, the pools don't come with those. You have to add those. If you have a chlorine pool, we can take care of that as well. And we can do the salt water, as Rob mentioned.
That is extremely neat. You know, and as we talk about right there, Bill, you know, you're dying to say something as well right here.
I just want to chime in, as Natasha mentioned, one of the convenience features, lawn fertilization. That's a great thing. We're the only ones that have that, but also we're the only ones that have, and I hate to say it, but we're talking about divorce, we're the only ones that have a thorough pest control. That pest does not include ex-spouses, ex-girlfriends, anything
Perfect
like that.
timing.
However,
That's awesome.
but I'm serious.
It does not cover the spouse.
No,
It does not.
Remember
But-
that.
But if you have
Pest control.
centipedes, millipedes, I mean, it has those things, and quite... Roaches, spiders.
Roaches.
Wait, is the spouse covered under the roach category?
That'll be in our
Real roaches
2014
here.
plan. But seriously, no.
By German roach, they're not talking about descendant or anything.
No.
But Natasha,
We're neutral, remember?
We are neutral. But seriously, the pest control, when you look at our brochure, I'm very serious. It's a great thing, even in our most basic of plans, that pest control covers the subterranean termite without any extra fees. If you look at some of these other plans out there, there is an extra fee if the subterranean termite is found. With us, there is not. It's strictly the $59, but it also includes those other pests, even mice, and one other wood-destroying insect, and that's the carpenter ant. So we have a real big package for
Very
that.
comprehensive.
And, you know, and the fact that we got pest control in there, I'll tell you, you made the whole show on that one. That right there is a great point.
That was awesome.
But, you know, as we talk about this, obviously we're talking about OneGuard home warranties right now. And remember, $25 discount if you call in right now. But one of the things that we want to make sure you understand, and that's the goal of this show, is to really give you some information. Divorce is not something we take lightly. And it's something that we definitely want to provide you the best information and best practices on. If you do have a question, we still have another 5-6 minutes to go. You can call us at 800-808-5548. By the way, feel free to do so. But, some of those best practices, getting back to what we talked about, one, finding a home warranty, putting it on the property so that you don't have to worry about some of those expenses once the spouse is no longer there to assist you. The other side of things is best practices that Joe talked about knowing how to separate those assets from a credit card perspective or a card perspective. Other thing is what Kitty spoke about in regards to how to protect your asset in your home. Make sure that you know where your spouse lies in regards to what they qualify for or what you can't qualify for to make an effective and efficient decision. Because at the end of the day, we want to take the emotion out of it. It has to be looked at from a business perspective. You have to do what's right for you and your family to make sure that that decision to go through a divorce is done well and is protected all sides of that transaction. It's one of the things to all of our listeners. Make sure you get with Joe. Make sure you get with Kitty. Make sure you get with OneGuard. If you want to sell a home, make sure you get with Rob. And if you want to finance a home, make sure you get with me as we talk about. We all are great resources. We truly believe in helping individuals out, and that helping of individuals out means that we want to hear from you and we want to assist you through that process.
I was going to say, when we talk about divorce, it's gloomy, but also after the divorce, there's a new life. But I want to mention that one of the plans we have for new construction, when you start that new life, should you buy a new home, a new condo, our plan on new construction takes that builder's warranty on the things that Natasha mentioned to another 4 more years. So just think about that. I know there's not time to talk about that, but the new construction plan that we have is excellent as it extends that builder's warranty for the things that we cover 4 more years.
You're right. There is life after divorce, as we tell everybody. Everyone has to reestablish themselves. And as part of that reestablishing yourself, you have to be able to go out there and continue to live life. A lot of times you're going to buy a new home. You're going to buy a new vehicle. One of the things we were talking, and I didn't think I had a chance to talk about this, is, oftentimes I have individuals that come into my office, and they want to sit down and they want to buy a home. And as we talked about the foreclosure issue that happened prior to, a lot of them, though, end up telling me is, I discussed this whenever I was leaving. However, the court gave the home to my spouse because the kids wanted to continue to live there, but they didn't qualify. How does something like that work? If an individual doesn't qualify, but the court does give it to the spouse because of the kids, how does something like that ever get worked out? I mean, how can you prevent something like that, Kitty?
Well, the easiest way to prevent that is to settle your case before you ever get in front of a judge. The problem is that this judge doesn't know the parties. All he does is listen to the evidence that's presented inside that courtroom. And the easiest way to make sure that you don't get hurt financially is to settle it before you get into the judge. But if the judge does, on the off chance, award a party that can't afford a house the house, then you ask the court to put in the provisions inside the decree that will protect the party that did not receive the house so that they could go forward in the event that spouse can't pay for it.
And I also heard one time in a divorce decree that even though the spouse got the home, they were mandated that the payment still be made by the individual who earned more money. And so I thought that was pretty interesting on one of the cases that we have. We're going to be coming up against time right here.
Yep, we're running it, as always, too much content for one show.
Time flies by.
I want to point out, guys, that everyone in the studio here, our main goal for the show is to provide you genuine content. I gave a shameless plug earlier for my company, but I want to mention that I hope you call and I hope you don't need me. I want you to be able to get the best advice possible in prepping for a really difficult situation, and that goes for everybody in the room. So go to realestateratpack.com. You can find all of us there, all of our sponsors. Just click on the logos, and you'll get access to all of the homepage, all of that stuff. Give us a shout.
And, I do want to thank all of our sponsors, Prudential, Improve My Credit USA, OneGuard, Jason Jimenez Insurance, Willowbend Mortgage, Belco, everyone. Until next show, as I like to say in poker, bye, bye, bye.
And you've been listening to the Real Estate Rat Pack. The question is, who's Frank, who's Sammy, who's Dean, and who's the other guy?
Chris is Frank,
I'm
he's
Dean.
and I'm Sammy.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So tune in to the really big show every Saturday at 9 a.m. right here on 100.7 The Word, KKHT.